Welcome to another episode of the STR Sisterhood. I'm your host, Stacy St, and I'm so thankful to be spending some time with you today. Now, before we dive into this episode, you know it, girl. I want to share a quote that I recently read that resonated with me. And it says, "Many women live like it's a dress rehearsal. Ladies, the curtain is up and you're on." Those beautiful words come to us from TV personality Mickey Taylor. Now, in this episode, we are sitting down with my good friend, Amanda Neely. Amanda is a certified financial planner and all around money guru. We sit down and talk through things like emergency funds, managing cash flow, what mistakes we need to be avoiding in our short-term rental businesses. And I can tell you, Amanda, as always, shares some amazing nuggets of info. So without further ado, let's dive into my conversation with Amanda. So we are here with one of the kindest people on the planet, Amanda Neely, who is a certified financial planner. And we're going to talk all things money today. Amanda, though, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Stacey. It's always a pleasure when I get to talk with you and with the STR Sisterhood.
I love it. So I want to just have you start off and share with our audience, if they haven't met you before, a little bit about who you are and what you do as a certified financial planner.
Yeah. So don't let that title scare you. First of all, I'm a normal person. I grew up in Southern Ohio, out in the middle of nowhere. I've got that kind of, my mom was from Kentucky, so I'm just going to call it Southern hospitality kind of ness to me. And I just love being that down-to-earth, ordinary kind of person that talks to people like they're real people, helps solve real issues, kind of the ordinary American's financial planner kind of gal. And with the caveat that if you have a business or you're in real estate, I'm your gal, because that's who I love to talk to, not people that want to put all their money in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. That's not my sphere. My sphere is let's build the middle class through business ownership and through real estate, tangible assets, things we can hold, and let's do it in ways without taking unnecessary risk. That's what I'm all about.
Amen. Amen. And you know what? This is going to be a very strange question, but it just popped into my mind, and I'm curious. From your vantage point, what percentage of financial planners are typically women?
Oh, yeah, I can tell you that because it's actually increased. If you look about 20 years ago, it was about 20%. And the latest data I saw, it's increased to 25%.
Wow. So 1 in 4.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting.
They were so proud of the increase. I'm like, we got a long way to go.
We got some ways to go there. No, that's awesome. So I love that you talked about building wealth without taking on risk. And, in some respects, I consider myself a risk taker. I think as entrepreneurs, we have to be risk takers to some extent. A lot of women, I feel like in the short-term rental industry, have this level of uncertainty or fear around fluctuating bookings, right? They're looking at their calendar and thinking, oh my gosh, I don't have any bookings on my calendar after next month, and it feels risky sometimes to be in the short-term rental space. What are some strategies that you recommend for achieving kind of financial security without worrying about the risk of not having bookings?
Yeah. And I want to be clear, like risk is, part and parcel with having a business or getting into real estate. There is going to be some degree of risk. I'm talking about not taking any unnecessary risk. Take the necessary risk to where you want to go, but let's avoid all the unnecessary. And part of that would be, you got to not over leverage, right? Like sometimes we're in the strive to build as quickly as we can and to get to our goals as fast as we can. We can take some bigger risks than maybe we would have if we were okay being a little, a year or two slower pace, right? Like, so I like to invite people to be like, well, this is the risk. And if the risk would get you there faster, is it worth it? But if we, step back a little bit from that risk and not over leverage, make sure we keep a lot of contingency capital, those kind of things, it might take, 12 months or 18 months more. How do you feel with that? Is that worth risk it? Or is that risk worth it?
Right.
Right. That's an important question to ask. A lot of people just don't ask. Like they're not even looking at the risk they're taking.
Mm-hmm.
And then your example though, some people feel that it's like, I'm in this. I've already got these properties. I feel really risky right now because I don't know where the income's coming from to pay the mortgages and to, all those things in 2-3 months. I've got no bookings then. And that's when I love that you're part of a sisterhood, people that are talking to each other, talking about what are the best marketing practices that are working now. How can I grow my number of bookings? That's really important. But also don't forget to, as you have bookings, to make sure you're setting aside a portion of the revenue that's coming in to make sure you're able to pay that rent, or that mortgage, in 3 months or 6 months whenever needed. And that's kind of your emergency fund or your contingency funds. But that also can be better if you're not over leveraged to begin with.
Yes.
If you haven't put everything in, you've already got that little fund set aside that if I have no bookings, I can pay the mortgage.
Yeah. You know what? I love that we're talking about this. And I'm curious, again, for someone who might be listening and hearing the term over leveraged, how, and they might have heard the term, but they may not know if they're over leveraged. So how would someone know if they're over leveraged to begin with?
Yeah. There's a couple things. One might be like, let's say I'm a fire drills kind of person. Let's say if you got no new bookings, how long could you go to be able to, keep paying your mortgage, pay the utilities, property taxes, like all those things without, how long could you do that with no new bookings? And do you feel comfortable with that? And then also, like, as you look at your financial landscape and you kind of, if you were to picture that as a landscape, do you picture that you're on like an edge of something that the wrong step might land you in bankruptcy, right? If you're feeling like you're on the edge, you're probably over leveraged. But if you feel like you've got some solidness under you, right? Whether you're in a valley or in a mountaintop, but you've got a solid rock under you that you're like, if everything goes wrong elsewhere, I know I can stand firm on this, whatever that this is, right? Maybe it's, a stash of money you have somewhere, or maybe it's a W-2 that you could keep doing, something like that. Using a W-2 as a rock seems kind of weird, but like just kind of open your imagination there.
Yeah.
Then maybe you're not over leveraged. You kind of and we could talk about formulas, all those kind of things, but if you're not sleeping well at night right now, you're probably over leveraged.
That's really good practical advice. I'm curious from, your experience. You asked, hey, if you got no new bookings, how long would you be able to go to pay the mortgage and utilities and things like that? From a professional's perspective, how long should you be able to go?
Well, the longer the better, right? Of course. Because I don't know, talk to other ladies, right? Talk to other people that own short-term rentals and see how long did you have to, what was your longest dry stretch, right? Like, and some it might be the winter, right? It could the summer, depending on where they're at, like 3 months. And you'd be like, okay, I'm in a similar position. That might be it for me. But also maybe look at, like, if you're in this, at least you can look back at the past year and you can kind of get some historical data and be like, yeah, during those lows, I wish I would have had, because then I wouldn't have gone into debt or, those kind of things during those lows, and I could have been to a better place. If you're just starting out though, rely on what other people are sharing, but also think like, based on your location and the costs that you have, how much could you go now? And then how would you feel if you could go 2 times that or 3 times that, right? If you go a month now, would you sleep better at night knowing you could go 2 or 3 months? Or if you go 3 months now, would you feel way better if you could go 6 or even 12 months, right? And one thing I'm a big believer in is that opportunity finds people who have the money for it.
Okay,
And
say that again. Wait a minute. Say that again, please.
opportunity finds people that have the money for it. So let's say you're saving up this emergency fund and you never use it. What if the opportunity comes up to buy an amazing property at a huge discount or to expand in some way to, do something really cool? You've got those funds. You can use them, right, to take advantage of the opportunity and not be over leveraged. It can actually help you with some of those other things too, not just to sleep well at night and have your bases covered if you don't have a renter for 3 to 6 months or whatever.
Love that. You also use the term contingency capital. Would you recommend that contingency capital be in one pile? Let's say you've got 5 properties, okay? Should you have a pile of cash, okay, that you can deploy for any particular property? Or would you recommend that each property have its own set of contingency capital? Talk to us about that.
Yeah. Are these properties all in one LLC or all personally held, or do you have an LLC for each one?
They are I always purchase properties in individual LLCs.
Okay. So then if you do mix them together, that can open you up to liability. So if you have separate LLCs, you want to make sure they're in separate accounts and not intermingle them. Be very clear there. However, there's an alternate strategy that I love, that I personally use, that might seem counterintuitive at first. So some people have heard of the profit first concept before. And I love that in profit first, you take your profit first, you set it aside in a separate bank, your profit hold account, and you build up a nice vault there. That's kind of your emergency fund, your contingency capital, all those kind of things are in that vault. Well, I don't want a whole bunch of money just sitting there in a bank doing nothing for me, right? And also, if it's an LLC, I'm a pass-through entity. So that means the money's coming to me and I'm paying taxes on that money just to leave it sit there in the savings account. I don't like that either. And I don't have personal access to it. And it's a business asset still, all those things. Well, what I do is I actually go ahead and take that profit hold and I give it to myself as a distribution. But then I'm not going to go spend it, like buy something crazy, right? Like I need it for contingency. I put it in a very special place where I know it's going to grow better than that savings account and that I can still access it if I need it for my business. And then I can put it back into the business either as a contribution or as a loan to the business. And the business can pay me interest on that loan, right? Like I get some play there, right? And because it's personally held, now I can do that with all my LLCs. They can all give me a distribution, and the like a larger stone growing is going to grow, like, or you can imagine the rings on a tree, to mix metaphors here, right? The bigger the tree, the bigger the next ring is. So by combining those things, I'm able to access and have larger growth, right? On the pile fully. And I can have all kinds of other tax benefits and stuff too. So that vault for me is something called Bank on Yourself. It's a dividend paying, high cash value, whole life insurance policy. It's properly structured. So I know I've got that money there and I can lend it to my LLCs as I need and when I need. And yet I never interrupt the compounding. It's still growing for me for the rest of my life and providing protection for my family in case something happens to me. Now they can pay off all my mortgages. They can keep my empire going.
I love that. And with the Bank on Yourself whole life policy, shall we say, I think that there are lots of folks who perhaps could be mistaken. And I'd love for you to add clarity where, okay, you buy a whole life policy and then you can pull the money right back out immediately. What does that timing look like for the average person?
Yeah. So there's a couple things that I look for when I'm a Bank on Yourself professional that those might not know. I set people up with this as a certified financial planner when it's appropriate for them. It's not right for everybody. A couple of things I look for is that you do have some capital sitting there. You've been able to consistently set aside a portion of the rental income that you're getting, all those things, and you're showing yourself that you have profits and that you're not going to need to touch those profits, immediately.
Mm-hmm.
You could, if the air conditioner breaks, you need to replace it, but that's what it's there for, not because you need it to do, run the business. So that's the first thing we look for. And then you would actually go through a process because every policy is custom designed to the individual and the family that we're doing that for. No two policies look alike. They're each, custom. So that takes some time to design. How does this strategy work and how does it fit into what you're currently doing? How does it boost what you're doing rather than detract from it? So you want to make sure, like, if you are looking into this, that somebody's custom designing it for you. So it takes some time. And then usually it's life insurance. You got to apply for it, right? Like you could, decide you want to buy a house. And if you've got the cash to close, you could close on it tomorrow. But unfortunately with life insurance, you've got to do a medical exam. You got to apply. That can take a little bit of time. But then once you're approved and you get the money in there, you have an immediate cash value that you can start using right away. There's
Amazing.
no required waiting period.
Amazing. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That is not what I expected you to tell me.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah.
So good. All right. I want to talk about cash flow for a hot second. Again, and I really want to focus on this uneasiness because there are a lot of people in the short-term rental space right now that are looking at different travel trends. They're looking at, this is an economy right now that isn't favorable for a lot of people to take extravagant vacations. We are in a situation too where there's a ton of additional inventory. So there's more competition in the market. And so again, income from our short-term rentals can look very different on a month-to-month basis.
Mm-hmm.
What additional tips do you have for someone who is looking to obviously be as strategic as possible with their finances, but to build long-term stability with, individual months going up and down?
Yeah. I'm about to tell you, since I've had a variable income for 13 years now. So this is coming from being through those ups and downs myself. One of the best things I did was switch to percentage-based budgeting or percentage-based cash flow rather than fixed dollar amount. So to apply this to like a short-term rental business, so you'd have like the rents that come in, your basic, like the things you need to cover, like the mortgage, right? Utilities, those are fixed or very close, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you have like your actual like revenue that's left over from that. So from there, I love using percentages to say, okay, I'm going to put this percent aside in my profit, this percent aside to pay me because I worked on this. I need to be paid.
Yep.
This percent aside for taxes, and this percent aside to like pay my property manager to pay for some extra marketing on the platforms, right? To do different things to grow my business, my operating expenses. And then no matter if I brought in, X or 10X for that month, I'm doing that percentages. So then when I'm trying to decide, do I have the money I'm not looking at one big pile of money. I'm looking at just the OpEx.
Right.
And then if I do like think, actually, I really want to do this, it's worth it. I can look and be like, am I willing to take from that profit, from that vault to do this? Right. And I have to be a little more intentional about it. And particularly when we come there's so many subscriptions and monthly recurring fees and stuff like that you're just looking at the OpEx then, because you don't want to be touching your contingency funds, your vault, your profit to do that, because you're going to have to keep doing that every month.
Right.
And so then what I like to do if I'm trying to decide if I'm doing a new subscription is be like, let me wait a month and see if my if things increase enough that I could pay the first 3 months of that subscription or the first 6 months of that subscription, or maybe even pay for the full year, right? Like that kind of thing, that I've got that sitting there is really helpful. So what too many people do is the fixed amount, which never works, because if the income is variable, you need that variability because your taxes aren't going to be fixed. They're going to be based on your income, right? So, and how much you're actually making. And you can vary those percentages. You can start with just like 1% and everywhere and everything else goes to OpEx. Then you can gradually increase and do, 3% everywhere, those kind of things. Talk to your accountant, see, am I going to have depreciation? Do I actually have to set aside X amount for taxes? All kinds of fun things that you can then play with those percentages.
I love a money expert. She thinks all these money things are fun.
I do.
I love it. That's a great piece of advice. Great piece of advice. Talk to me about balancing between personal and business finances, because I also know that so many people are feeling like they're constantly having to contribute their personal finances to keep their short-term rental afloat. And we don't want to do that, right?
Yeah.
But I've also come across so many folks who, quite candidly, haven't separated their personal and their business finances. Talk to us about why that's important, number one. And then secondarily, what are some practical ways that people can build that divide?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I am not an attorney. I don't play one on TV. I'm also not a CPA or an enrolled agent. I can't give tax advice. So this is me, my understanding, fact check everything I'm about to say. So got to do those disclaimers. When you have commingled funds and you get sued, somebody slips and falls on the stairs, something like that, they can go after everything.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have that separated and there's a clear line between this is business and this is personal, and you have, the business and an LLC, there's no commingling or transferring unless it's documented and, for like you're paying yourself, those kind of things. You've created a barrier that now they can only go after the business assets if it's business related, or they can only go after the personal and they can't touch the business if it's personal related, right? It could be your house's stairs that they fall down instead of your rental's stairs.
Right.
So that's very important. Number one. Secondly, tax wise, it's a total nightmare when you have so many receipts to go through and so many things to figure out. There are great advantages to, like, if you're using your cell phone for your rental business, to have that cell phone bill paid by the business. It's a business, you're using it for business purposes. Totally makes sense. But to have like that dinner that you had with your significant other where you maybe kind of talked about the rental, but not really like paid for by the business, that like not so much, right? You'd want that to be personal. And if you ever get audited or there's any red flags there, you could end up owing a lot of taxes with a lot of penalties and interest and everything. The IRS will come and get you. So you don't want the IRS on your bad side. But forget about the attorneys, forget about the taxes. It's also for our sanity. How do you know if your business is doing well if you're not keeping the business separate from the personal?
Yeah.
How do you know you're actually able to cover your personal stuff if your business is, always, covering that, right, personally, without you knowing, like, if you took a distribution and if you're going to owe taxes and you get this big tax bill, like just the chaos that comes when things are not separated and defined is like such a time waster and a stress builder. And it might seem like it's more burdensome. It takes a lot more time to keep everything separate. And that might feel true at first, but once you get used to it, it's way faster. And it saves you a bunch of time when it comes to, tax season and, figuring out how do you grow and what do you build. You're going to know and not have to like figure all that out at that point.
Yep. And quite candidly, there are so many phenomenal tools out there in the short-term rental space. We can create new bank accounts through places like Relay, where you can just go online and set up your accounts, right? And if you are on Airbnb, all you have to do is change your payout account. Like, it is very easy these days to separate things. So if you're watching this or listening to this and thinking, I should really do that sometime, Amanda and I are here to say you should really do it right now.
Yep. I know. I just had to go send an email to my banker at my credit union to say I need a new account. And he sent me over the paperwork and I didn't have to leave my house. I didn't have to go in.
Amen.
The internet is so easy these
days.
It is
so amazing. And so I bank with, obviously I've got a lot of property in South Carolina. I have several bank accounts in South Carolina. They will do the exact same thing. I'll send them an email. I'll call them. Hey, I need to open an account. They'll send me a DocuSign. Again, there are resources to do it online. There are still, I will say, more quote old school banks where you have to walk in the door. If that's you and you're like, I can't stand that, I don't have 2 hours to go spend at the bank, try someone new.
Yep.
Right? Try someone new.
And it doesn't have to be a bank. It can be a credit union. They've made leaps and bounds with technology as well. I'm a big fan of credit unions because of how they build into the local community. Like if you need a loan and you're a local business, much easier to get from a credit union than from a big bank.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that my savings that I do have there, that's not in my whole life policy, is building my local economy. And I'm building a relationship with someone that if I do want a loan, way easier to get it because they already know me.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to ask you about emergency funds. So would you categorize emergency funds as the same thing as contingency capital, or would you have a contingency capital bucket and also a separate emergency funds bucket?
Yeah, I have, what I like to do is kind of make a list of here are the things that could go wrong. No tenants, for a while, or or renters or whatever. No, the air conditioner blows out or the HVAC unit. I've got to replace a roof. Do that on the business side, but also do it on the personal side. My tires could blow, right? Like I might need to get my kid braces, right? Like all kinds of things that you can list there, and then think like, how would I cover this? Where are those funds? Within the business, maybe you keep some just so you're not having that cash flow crunch, and like you can pay this without having to constantly moving personal to business and business to personal. But also on the personal side, that you build up those funds so that you're not relying on the business to maybe fund an emergency or a credit card to fund an emergency. Those kind of things. But I actually I renamed mine because I don't want an emergency to happen. Like even calling it an emergency, right? Like that feels like I'm almost wishing an emergency would happen. And so we have we kind of broke ours out. So we have like, here is like, if we want to do something special with our son, right? Like send him to summer camp and it's going to be extra. Here's where we could do that. Like, or if we need extra childcare, or if he breaks an arm or something like that, it's kind of his fund to make sure he has a good life. And then we have like something goes wrong with real estate, or something goes well with it's like well with real estate. It's just our real estate fund. And we can choose how much we want to keep available for emergencies, how much we want to keep for contingencies, or how much we want to put into our next opportunity.
Right.
And that actually makes it way more exciting to fund too. Sometimes I'm not setting this aside for an emergency. I'm setting this aside because there could be a really great opportunity too.
I love that. It does make it seem more fun, and it makes it actually, I think it shifts the mindset so you want to contribute to it.
Exactly. Yep. And we also have just our like mad money that we're not spending it, at the restaurant or on the DoorDash every, that's a different kind of mad money. This is just mad money that's there for the long-term joy. That if we do get something, whether it be personal or business or, whatever, that we can handle the storm that would blow our way, or we can be prepared to launch into something really spectacular. And we call it mad money. Like it's there for whatever we want and need, and it's going to bring us joy long-term.
And I was going to say, I just think that's so cool. And it's one of the reasons I love you, because I feel like you look at things in a different light. It's not all in a box. It's not, you have to have this amount here and check this box and this has to match that line. No. Like, I love the fact that you think about joy.
Yeah. If you're like, why did you get into this business to start with? For more happiness, more joy, more peace. Like, let's make sure your money is aligning with that, not getting in the way of it.
Yeah. Amen, sister friend. That's right. Okay. Next question. I want to ask you about retirement planning. And I mean, I'm a mere 29 years old. So
Me too.
Not really. Okay. But I think a lot of people too, when they get into the short-term rental space, or maybe they're launching a new business, regardless of whether or not it's in real estate, they're thinking about the here and now and hustling to make the here and now happen, right? From your perspective, talk to us about in that moment where you're hustling for the here and now, what should we be doing to still plan for our retirement?
Yeah. Well, one of the most fun things to do is to think, what is retirement really? And I love that people are redefining that word for them, right? It's not about doing nothing. It's about this adventure they want to take, or this volunteering they want to do, or the time they want to spend with their grandkids, or, whatever it might be. And so have fun with that part, just dreaming of what does quote unquote retirement mean for you? A lot of people, it's financial freedom. Well, what do you do with that financial freedom?
Right. You sit around and watch soap operas all day? No.
If that's what you want to do, then
maybe you do.
Yeah. And then I like to call it exit planning. So where you are right now, how are you going to exit that to get into that definition of freedom? And even if you're building a short-term rental empire, it's taking your time. You're, finding those properties, you're building it. Even if you have a property manager, it's taking your time. How do you switch that time into total freedom, where you get to decide exactly what you do with your time? What does that look like? Does it look like selling properties? Does that look like passing on some of what you're doing, to somebody else to delegate to? Does that look like something totally different? And kind of doing that exit planning to get to that financial freedom that you want. And then kind of working backwards from there. So let's take the example of delegating, right? You have a business, you don't want to have to spend any time there, but you could if you choose to, right? That's kind of what you're thinking of. You might be like, okay, let me make a list of all the things I'm doing now. And once a quarter or once a year, let me remove one of those things from my list and delegate it out. And make sure I'm doing that financially responsible, because that's going to cost more money. But if I'm paying myself, then, this should work, right? I should be able to pay somebody else to do that. And eventually you get to I've delegated everything. I can do whatever I want now. Bam, I'm retired.
Yeah.
But if you don't make that list, if you don't set that dream, if you don't set that intention, then you don't know what to do along the way, right? If you don't know where you're going, you end up somewhere else. And then you also make really good financial decisions too, because you know what financial freedom looks like. You know, what the numbers associated with that are. What's the annual income or the monthly income you need? What are some of the places that's coming from? You might still have a pension or some Social Security. You might have a 401k from an old job. All those things, and then you find the gap that you need to make up, and then you know exactly. Oh, if I had this many short-term rentals, that would fill that gap. Or actually I need 10 times that, or, whatever it might be. Or maybe I need to switch and go from, short-term rentals that are in this kind of location to short-term rentals that are in that kind of location, because that has a little more steady income. You get to see those solutions because you've defined the problem. You've found the gap, the dream, all those things. And then you make way better decisions along the way. So, because the biggest thing when people are in it, and they're not thinking long-term, long range, they end up doing things they have to undo and redo. And it's a lot easier to make a tiny shift today to get you to where you want to go than to end up trucking along this way. And then you got to make a 50-degree turn in 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. If someone is looking, or let me rephrase that. If you are looking to make a big purchase, what is your thought process? How do you think about, is this the right thing to do from a financial perspective?
Yeah, I'm a good old pros and cons list, right? Here's all the pros if I do this, here's all the cons. Also, what are the alternatives? Compared to what? That's a huge question to ask. Compared to what? Right? So that's part of it. The other thing is, they have these tools out there, right, where you can evaluate whether a property makes sense or not, and do the cash flow analysis and stuff like that. But then run some of those fire drills. Run some of those. If this went wrong, here's what would happen? And am I okay with that? Or do I feel like I'm taking unnecessary risk rather than necessary risk to do it? And I one of the phrases that I've adopted is you can't rush clarity. And I allow myself, I like say, okay, I'm going to make this decision. I sometimes set a deadline. I'm going to give myself 2 weeks to make this decision.
Yep.
And sometimes it'll happen way faster and I'll be like, I got clarity already. And sometimes I'll get to that decision and I'll still be waffling and I'll be like, time to make a decision. And I get clarity right then. And sometimes I get a dream or there's some kind of social interaction that happens that like confirms like and gives me the clarity. But if I hadn't have set that intention, that clarity may have never come and I would have been stuck, grinding my wheels, not doing anything.
So good. So good. I love it.
And of course, sometimes clarity also comes when you're talking with someone else, not just looking for, and I know tons of people that have gotten way more clarity talking to me and just asking me questions, me being a sounding board, even me turning back those questions to them. Like, oh, I never thought about that, right? Like, it's so much fun.
Yeah. And that's a great point. So clarity may come from silence. It may come from just space and thinking. It could come from a conversation. Do you know where I get a ton of ideas is listening to books. I am constantly pausing books because for me, I get real clear on ideas. Probably because I'm hearing about what someone else did. And then I'm thinking while I'm listening, how can I apply that? So I think that's a really, really awesome point that clarity can come in many different ways.
Yeah. I think some of my biggest aha moments have come in the bathroom, either taking a shower or on the toilet.
There you go. Keeping it real. Keeping it real. All right. Next question I want to ask you I'm sure you've seen a lot, right? But what are some of the most common financial mistakes you see entrepreneurs, like business entrepreneurs or, even real estate entrepreneurs make? And how can we avoid them?
Yeah. We've listed a lot already, right? Like not having contingency or emergency funds or any other kinds of funds, not keeping business and personal separate, right? Like those kind of things. The thing that scares me the most is when people try to do the financial side all on their own and do their own bookkeeping, file their own taxes, make their own investment decisions or savings decisions. I love a DIY investor, but I think they still need a money team that they at least can ask questions to and can coach them and give them an outside perspective. Or when people try to do all the money things with someone that talks over their head and won't break it down for them. I've come across so many people even recently who shared with me, I hired this guy, usually a guy, to do, this financial stuff for me. And I told him this is what I wanted. And when I looked back at it after we implemented, I realized then that we didn't do what I wanted to do. This is not what I thought it was. And it's because he was using all this fancy language and talking about all these things and all these moving parts. And they didn't take the time to say, slow down. I need you to break it down for me. The financial people are most often fiduciaries. Not work with the fiduciary, work with the fiduciary. I'm a fiduciary. Fiduciaries are very important. But part of a fiduciary is they have to act in your best interest, right? Like they have to do what's in your best interest. And if you don't know exactly what they're doing and you're able to tell this is in my best interest and here's the 5 reasons why, you don't have to know all the mechanics behind it.
Right.
Then how do you know? And I've come across so many people that they put their team together, whether it's the bookkeeper that can't explain to them what they're doing with their bookkeeping, or their tax professional that doesn't give them a tax strategy, or their financial advisor, financial planner that won't break down. Okay, it's kind of like when you buy a car, you don't have to know how everything under the hood works, but you have to know where to put the gas in, how to turn the steering wheel, where the brake and the gas are, and when to tell something's wrong, you need to take it in for maintenance.
Right.
We need to have that kind of understanding about our money. And if we don't, we're working with the wrong people.
That's a great analogy. You're really good at analogies.
Thank you.
And I love that you call it a money team, because I do feel like a lot of the people I come across almost feel the weight of the world on their shoulders, because they're wanting to make smart investment decisions. They have the best intentions at heart, but yet they feel stuck because they don't know what to do. And I also feel like when you call it a money team, it helps bring perspective that it's just resources. There's not necessarily a money person. There's a financial planner, a tax strategist, several members of a money team, correct?
Yeah.
You agree? Yeah.
Yeah. And what's cool is when you're thinking about a team mentality, we're recording this in September. It's football season.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of members on the team, and they all might have all kinds of ideas of what the next play should be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the quarterback that ultimately calls the play.
Mm.
And at each person in their own lives, you listening right now, you need to be the quarterback on your money team. You hear the different perspectives. If they disagree, even better, that means you're getting a well-rounded perspective, but you call the shots, and everybody on your team needs to give you that power.
Ooh, that gives me goosebumps.
Women need to hear this.
Yeah, I know. Girlfriend, I know it. I see it each and every day. I know it.
Yeah.
And I think, again, one of the things that I love about you is you do keep it real. Like, you keep it in from a perspective of like, I can understand this stuff, right?
Yeah.
I know what a quarterback does. Can't throw a ball, but I know what a quarterback does.
I don't even like football, and I know what a quarterback does.
All right, what sports do you follow sports at all?
Oh, baseball would probably be the closest. I love going to a Reds game here in Cincinnati a couple times a year, but I don't really follow the sports. I'm a good, give me a book and a cup of coffee and I'm great.
Yeah. Amen. All right. So what I want to do now is I want to move to the lightning round. Okay. I'm going to ask you a couple questions and just answer with the very first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
First question is, where is your favorite place to vacation?
I really like St. Kitts.
Oh, I'm going there for the first time.
Oh, you're going to love it. You're going to love it.
I'm so excited. Is it just like the beauty of it? What about St. Kitts do you love?
Yeah, it's super beautiful. Of course, the people are nice. The weather's perfect. I've been to several Caribbean islands, and I feel like there's just something posh about St. Kitts.
I love that. Okay. Well, I'll keep you posted once I'm back.
Okay.
I'll let you know what I think. All right. What's one place you've never been that you want to visit?
Africa, like the whole continent, but particularly like South Africa. Yeah, it'd be so fun.
So a couple of my team members live in South Africa, and actually one of them just flew over for the Live Big Beach retreat that we just had. And at that retreat, all 24 of us were thinking and talking about, we need to plan a trip to South Africa.
Yes.
Like, wouldn't that be so fun?
It would.
Right. So you got to come, girl, if we do that.
Okay.
All right. All right. Next question. What's one thing you know now that you wished you knew when you were starting out in the world of financial planning?
I shared a lot of them today. I wanted to give you things that like nobody's talking about. Yeah. If I add to that, like, it'd be just like, I need to be myself. I tried so much to fit into what is expected in, the suit and tie world of the financial industry. And I probably wasted some time doing that instead of like embracing my femininity and my ability to make great analogies and tell good stories. And that's really my superpower, empathy and, being with people, not above them. Yeah.
Love that. Love that. All right. Next question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
So this comes from an attorney that I worked with at one point. He told me, go as far as you can see, and then you'll see farther. And that idea of like setting your sights, like, here's where I want to go, but also being open to, like, you get to this mountain and you might then see another mountain that looks like way cooler and you might want to keep going.
Yeah.
Like, and always being open to that.
That's great advice. That's great advice. All right, last question. What's one thing and or person that you're grateful for today?
So many. I gotta say, I'm really grateful for my husband. He's a big cheerleader of me, like supports me that way, but also like he helps around the kitchen and like does all kinds of things. We have a 6-year-old and the ability to be like, I'm going to go do this girls thing and not have to worry is such a blessing that I don't want to ever take for granted.
Yeah, that is so good. My husband, it's funny. So we actually, as of the day we're recording this, we just celebrated our 30-year anniversary yesterday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I got married when I was 4.
Yeah, of course.
But it's interesting how our relationship and what we do around the house has evolved over time. So about 2 years ago, now not quite 2 years ago, I came home one day and I actually been to a retreat. And I learned at this retreat that so many of the other people there weren't doing their own laundry. And I shared with my husband, hey, by the way, I'm no longer going to do laundry. And he did not divorce me. I love that. So he does the laundry now. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, my husband's done the laundry. We've been married. It'll be 18 years this year. He's done the laundry almost the whole time. There's certain things I don't let him fold because I just like, they need to be folded correctly, but otherwise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I have discovered, I mean, this is a very important topic we're talking about right now. So let's just stay on it. I did discover that I think early on, my husband was intentionally washing the whites with the reds to have me reconsider that I wasn't going to do the laundry. But I just had to keep nudging him.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Don't give up. Training. Everybody needs training.
That's right. Amanda, thank you so much for being here. You're such a joy and I just appreciate you so much.
My pleasure, Stacey. It is all my pleasure. Thanks so much for being part of my life.
Now, before you go, I want to give a quick shout out to all of the amazing women inside the Female Short-Term Rental Investors Facebook group. Just a few weeks ago, we had a very special lady post a question. Julie Trackman posted, how much do you charge extra for a 4-hour early check-in if you can accommodate? What I thought was really interesting in reading through all of the comments, a lot of folks actually don't charge extra. A lot of folks shared that they believe that it's part of hospitality, while other people actually do charge extra. I saw things range from $50 to $100 to $150. I saw some people say that it depends on the daily rate. Lonnie Harris shared, I first check with the cleaner's schedule and if they can accommodate, and if they can, anything before 2 p.m. is $50. After 2 p.m. is free. And again, that's one of the plethora of answers that we got on this very simple but important question. So Lonnie, thank you so much for sharing your perspective. Julie, thank you for asking. And with that, I hope you have an amazing week and I will see you again very soon.